they want to meet them in the skies. They want to have these experiences. You better be damn well sure that you're serious. This is not like, oh, isn't this cool? We're talking to ETs.
It's not like going to Disneyland or anything.
No, it is transformational. So what you are inviting is transformation. And if you want transformation, then yes, initiate the dialogue, but be willing to go all the way with what they are here to do. Yes, it is the Akashic Records. I am reading what is in the field, either about the client or, that they need to know now, and how to move forward in this amazing time that we're in. When I ask specific questions or I dialogue, then the data starts coming, rapid fire images with feelings. So the Sound of Gold files were coming from going into an altered state. That was taught to me how to do that from this intelligence. When I speak, what I'm translating, whether it's my voice or a client's voice, if I speak it as a musician, I notice when something's not in tune or in harmony or it's not accurate. So I stop and I try from a different angle. And then when that's in tune with, what I'm hearing from my own voice, then it proceeds. When a client is speaking to me, I hear in the same thing. I hear in the tones of their voice. I'm receiving the data that I need so that I can match it with what I'm being shown, and then interpret that back to the client about who they are and what their intent was for this time, and to support them through this process of expansion in consciousness while staying in form. What was coming this morning, it didn't come in the usual, okay, I start resonating and then a message starts coming through and I'm translating in real time a message from this viewpoint. Well, they were showing me, and when I say they, it's, let's just call it non-human intelligence that has been with me my entire life and preparing me for this time. And I have found others like myself, like you, Zuzanna, who who has had a life like this, a lifetime experiencer that changed you and kind of upgraded you in consciousness so that we could be ultra aware during this time, or as much as possible during this time. And then in dialoguing with each other, we help fill in some of the blanks of things that I might have a blind spot on that you help fill me in on, and others that we've talked to, and vice versa. So they showed me that the way that data starts to happen, the way that life starts to happen as we, some people call it ascend. Okay, here's another
Right.
a word that keeps coming to me, but I don't want the connotations of everything that already exists, right?
Yeah.
my wisdom and data and information is grown from the roots up. It's grown uh, from actual experience and being changed, and then relating to this data in a pre-articulated space, and then I interpret it and share it, not based on comparisons with what exists. So this data may be out there in many ways. And
Right.
I've even had people say, oh, what you're talking about is what, Greg Braden talks about. It's, that's already done. That's already, it's already out there. And it's like, oh, great. But my point is this can happen within each of us individually, where we know and own the wisdom. It is us. We're embodying it. We're not getting it from someone else and going, oh, isn't that interesting, and relating to it, in an intellectual way, right?
Right. Right.
Um,
You can
but it
experience viscerally, or just like within yourself. That's just the most important thing.
right, and so it's relating to data directly. You have these aha understandings that just arrive before it's even made linear. You just know it. It's, feeling, knowing, wisdom, feminine wisdom, um, and then, like, what we do and what we've done through the experiencer dialogues is we relate to each other, and then you'll go, I resonate with that because I embody it. And oh, look, you're articulating it. And yes, I see that. I know that. And here's something I can add to that, right? Here's an insight that I had that I want to add to it, And so this is how we grow this and embody this divinity, if you will. See, here we go again with terms. Embody this awareness that is not something new. It's the way we were designed to be. And we are reactivating that by our engagement, our direct engagement and consciousness, our direct dialogue with, source or your guides, or whatever term you're comfortable with.
Yeah. And that process of dialoguing back and forth and adding and getting validation, everything like that, it's been immeasurably valuable to me.
For me too. Yeah, very much so. This is part of the excitement in these times. I feel these, the willingness. I would say that the prerequisite for having successful dialogues in this way is that we have to already be telling the truth in our own lives. Then what they showed me years ago was then we practice being truthful with each other. And, with the caveat, you just wait until you guys start talking with each other from this honest, truthful space. Because that's when things go exponential. So the way they showed me that this data happens as we embody more, we unlock more. Data is not attached to timeline. It's not past. It's not future. Whatever we are resonating with right now, and we have, and we're, let's say I'm dialoguing with this presence. Then what happens is data will start arriving from, like, it could be a memory of something that happened in 1985 in my life, and then it could be a future thing, and they'll just and several of those, and they'll just go, whoo, and it's like, okay, here's all the data on this, right? And it just blew my mind this morning, the way it happened. They were showing me that this is how you transcend this time space 3D thing, is by being available enough and neutral enough. So you've done your work, you don't have the shadow sticky material to get triggered or react to, right? Like, and fear. But you can maintain this open awareness, so that when the data starts coming from all angles, that is here to respond to the inquiries, then we can start unpacking what's there. See, it's showing me, I feel, the ways in which and what we're growing into, if we're available to grow into it. And this, I feel, is probably what was intended for the term ascension. That if it is ascension, we're moving through it right now, and we have been moving through it. Isn't some future event. We are actually moving through it right now.
Absolutely.
And it has to do with engaging directly yourself. It's some people still think, a lot of people still think it's an event that they're waiting for and they're going to be saved, right? Because they follow this protocol or that belief system.
And it's a process rather than an event,
Right. It is definitely a process. The thing that holds us back is that stuck place where you have this preconceived, or no, not preconceived, you have this idea that you're safe in this bubble of existence, and that what you were living in was real. That's the biggest wake-up call. I mean, it's real, but it's only real on this many layers, right? And as we grow, and as you and I were changed, and other experiencers were changed in this way over our lives, we expand the layers, we expand our view, and then we have to practice not only being it, adapting to it, but then desperately wanting to explain it to those around us, which has been the frustrating,
right?
the most frustrating parts, right? They showed me a new, not new, new healing method with that, these layers, the sediment that I keep telling you about, that they keep showing me. It's like a cutout from the side of a hill, geologically, sediment layers. And that's what they're showing me, to relate to the layers of human consciousness, and also the layers that are possible. I wanted to insert an extra note here that I didn't cover before. When I was shown these layers, these sedimentary layers of consciousness, they were pointing out to me that in the lower vibrational matrix, we will relate to an idea of something, like, say, ascension. And we're drawing on knowledge, we're drawing on things that we learned from other people or from the existing reality. And we're thinking that we understand what ascension is. When we expand into more layers of consciousness, we're not relating anymore to existing data. We are embodying and being that ascended human being. And life becomes about practicing this graduation into many more available layers of consciousness. They show me, and through the voice of the client, what layer of the sediment has a block and where it shows up on the body, and then to target that. And I just had a ton of energy come in, and then we direct that energy and that love. I was getting for a while that, we're not going to be able to articulate this too far back into the layers, into the sediment, and that we have to move on. We can't, if we keep reaching back and trying to articulate in a linear fashion, in the ways that they need to receive data, then it kind of, it keeps us, it prevents us from expanding and growing and meeting others like ourselves that are vibrating in this space, right? It's not a, screw you, you're not going fast enough, you're not getting it. It's more like, it's just energy. It's just, if this is where you choose to hang out, fabulous. You'll get the support and help that you need, right, from the places that you need it. But this is something that's moving, so we have to move with it and adapt to it ourselves, right? This is another key part, and I'm gonna invite you to talk in a few minutes, but I have to get this out. The other aspect of this is, it's hard, you can't even explain to a lot of people what we go through in these shifts in consciousness, and how we have to adapt to it and still appear normal, like, so as not to completely freak people out, or it's not, yeah, or it's not ready to be articulated yet. It's still being integrated within us, right? So this has been our lives of, hey, yeah, I'm just like you, everything's great. I don't know, they took me out my window last night and taught me lots of stuff, but yeah, we go through these phases now. We've talked about this, you and I, previously, where we'll land into a new phase, and it's like, oh, whoa. It's like you're in a tiny room before, and then the room just suddenly gets really big, and it's like, wait, who am I in relation to the room? Who am I in relation to the others who are here in the room? It's all like this. For me as a musician, it's always been about, and in the Mayan, my Mayan glyph is Akabal, the bat. It's like I relate to things through sound. And so when they suddenly get big and we've just landed into a greater context, we have to adjust to that. We have to, like, still maintain our lives, right? Still function. We're in the world, right? But fast becoming not of it. I mean, more and more and more. And, what that might look like. I could come up with, several different viewpoints on that. So I feel like I got the bulk of what I wanted to begin talking about out. So I very much appreciate you, listening. And if you have anything you want to say or contribute, I'd welcome that.
Well, one of the things that came back in my head when you were talking was something we spoke about yesterday. If you remember, I can't remember what started it off, but you were saying that this linear line, it's not a line anymore, it's a sphere. Do you remember that?
Yes. Uh-huh.
So
Yeah.
last night I was tuning into that, and I got this whole like experience of being in the sphere. And so when you're in the sphere, it's like there's unlimited points to interface with, or unlimited data points, maybe. I don't know exactly what it is.
Absolutely. Right on. Mm-hmm.
And if I look at the sphere from outside of it, it looks like a lightning storm in there. And if I'm in the center of the sphere, it looks like there's light movement, but it's kind of like veins. It's really hard to describe because I haven't ever seen anything like it before. And it's kind of like light movement all over the inner, it's like a membrane rather than a hard surface, you know,
Mm-hmm.
sort of things in that sphere.
Yeah.
And it's just this movement all over the place. And the sphere can get bigger. So as it gets bigger, and maybe that is when we upgrade in our consciousness kind of thing, I'm not exactly sure, there's more data points available because it's kind of like a balloon getting bigger. There's more surface area, you know?
Yes.
So that's what I experienced last night. And so I understood what it was from maybe like an artistic perspective, rather than just kind of like talking about it, you know, or trying to understand it there, you know? So it was kind of like something that could be painted. I can understand it. Even if it's really hard to paint, you can't really do it with the available supports and media, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Which I don't think I could paint this, but if it's a visual, then I can understand it more. With you,
Right.
it's sound, you know?
Right.
Which is interesting. I like that. So yeah, that's something that came up in the topic of conversation, and I've been writing down words that you're saying that we need new words for, and I'm gonna make a list of these damn words, and we're gonna start doing it.
Thank you.
Maybe it's not.
I have to point out that behind you is a beautiful sphere of light from the sun coming through, I guess, a window.
It is coming through a window, because
So
when I look at it, it just looks like a window. But when I see it in here, it looks like this sphere. And before we started recording, I turned around and where's that lamp? I don't remember that lamp there. And it's a window. So
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, good. Finding new words, that's good, because you know, a lot of people, they attach to their words and their labels and the mental files that are attached to those words, that they will go find and go, oh, I know all about this, you know, rather than allowing something from the spaces in between to emerge. You know,
This is expansive, right?
This is where the emergence comes from. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. We're needing to find, like the word mind, like 20 years ago, that word was making me crazy, because
me too.
Umpteen, really, yeah, because there's umpteen terms that need to be used within that one stupid word, you know? I mean, what does mind mean? We think we know what it means, and we don't know what it means. There's like a whole dictionary full of terms that people use for the word mind, and that was making me crazy. So I started, doing that. It was probably about 20 years ago. I started making a catalog of what, what mind actually really incorporates,
Yes, I totally share that frustration. I was taught with this non-human intelligence how to access this wisdom in the spaces in between, in the field, not what exists, not what's on the existing grid, but to sink into that which informs from between molecules within us, in between our cells. This is where our wisdom is. This is where our inner data comes from. No matter how smart you are within that bandwidth, there's more. There's more. And it has to do with blowing through and healing all that blocks it, right? And this is what terrifies people the most. This is what makes them shut it out. Please start inviting others who don't speak like you, but who access wisdom that would be very, very helpful right now in how we move forward. See, this is the issue, right? Isn't it? It's like this is the issue where we're only hearing from within our bubbles, and we think we're going to break through and create new systems and create a new world from that space.
I know. It's so not going to happen. It's so not going to happen.
Right. And they're getting revenue streams from it. They're getting propped up by the bandwidth that they're in. So they're not able.
It is supportive to them. And so that, with most people, if you are being supported by something you're doing, you're on the right track. And that's not necessarily so in this expanded
not
level.
anymore.
It's not anymore. Yes,
Not
exactly.
anymore.
Not anymore. And I always wondered about that. And it was true for a certain period of time, and it was true for many, many people. It was never true for me.
Everything that's popular, extremely popular in this bandwidth right now, is not necessarily the right direction. Okay. Everything that is unpopular is where people should be looking right now, because of the algorithms especially. Then people don't realize, especially in the social media entrainment with their minds now, they do not realize that they will go and see and check how many views or likes something has, and they will judge the person based on that.
Yes.
And they don't know that they're doing that. That's how entrained they have become. Yeah. And it's why I left Facebook. Very guided to leave Facebook. It wasn't like, F you, Facebook, you're messing with my mind. It was just like, oh, I can't go any deeper into this now. I went as far as I could. Now I must extract myself from it and find the people who are alive and well on the outside of that herding mechanism, this herding consciousness down into the chute, you know. So in this ascending process, we start to disappear, and we're not so visible, and that already shows up in social media, right? We're not visible, we're not popular, but it's because we're moving into more layers of, more dimensions of reality, and we're practicing existing with those layers.
And so we, of necessity, become invisible. I mean, it's just kind of like physics, probably, right?
Yeah, I would think so. That sounds good anyway. But I've been through this before when I started doing my music, when all the original material came after my Kundalini event, and people were like, what does it mean? What are you singing about? Because it didn't come in the pop music prepackaged form where I'm supposed to sing about, baby, don't leave me now, or, oh, you're everything to me, you know, and it just bounces back and forth, you know, like, here's the new one, oh, baby, you're everything to me, and oh, baby, don't leave me. This was where I was supposed to fit in my musical career. And I disappointed a lot of people because I didn't go down specific paths singing about those things. What wanted to sing through me was the dialogue. That was what kept me going, was that there were a few people that were affected in the ways I was affected by the presence when it came, when it enveloped me and delivered all this music. So now I'm experiencing the same thing in the spiritual circles, where people will say, why can't you just build a platform like everybody else and frame it this way so that you can make money, right? Yeah, believe me, I'd love to have more resources available to me. But I'm not going to reduce myself to these boxes anymore.
I've tried to fit the formula, for years and years and years. And it's just, finally, it's just kind of like, well, I'd rather be happy than have money, you know?
It kind of boils down to that, right? And it isn't always going to be that way. I was shown this morning.
Oh, good. Good.
And also it's not always going to be that we're unpopular or invisible.
And does that come in your and my lifetime? Or do we get in another body and start out and be popular or whatever, whatever the
okay,
term will
back
be
to address that question, back to, it's not time and space anymore. It's like it's so what you just did, and I do it and we all do it, is we've been oriented to this linear way of being and this time-based way of being. Believe it or not, this is what we are transcending. This idea that this is the way it works.
Right.
It only works that way because you're seeing through this. So when you start expanding, you go, oh my God, I so get it and see it now. I understand. So much more makes sense. All these missing pieces and questions, everything's filled in. So when we ask a question,
once it gets filled in, and you can't articulate it.
right. But you are joined by others who are hanging out here and not needing to have it articulated, right? And what that looks like is up to us.
Right.
And so even though consensus reality keeps telling us, you're crazy, what are you even talking about? Boy, do I have a lot of experience with that, as I was saying, with my music. What are you talking about? Why can't you just sing about this? Sorry, this is who I am and this is where I'm going. And I have to be true to what comes through me. I didn't even really understand it at first, the way it came. But now, even listening to some of the messages that came back early on, and or even some of my journals here, the way I'd scratch out and just write it out, what was being downloaded or coming. Even when I read that now, it's like I get so much more. I understand through many more layers, of what it was showing me, but had to be reduced to these little words on a page. And I remember the frustration of that, of like, I'd look at what I wrote later. This has probably happened to you too. You look at what you wrote and you're in this ecstatic state of receiving all this data. Oh my God, this is amazing. To you, it's amazing because you're feeling it all and it's so clear. And then you look at your words and you go, oh my God, that makes no sense at all.
I know. Or it's like, why did I get so excited about that?
Exactly.
Because it's such a small bandwidth of information coming through.
Yeah.
And that's a really valuable and pivotal experience to have, because then that there's more, then that you can access more, and that this little thing that everybody's saying is the be all and end all is not.
Right. Exactly.
Not.
Exactly. And then the craziness that would ensue when you knew you had some connected, universal field connection, and you were receiving all of this data that comes in energy, and it's love, it's pure love, and you're having this grand experience. And then when it fades from us and we look at the words, that's when we're going back to this and we're valuing this again. It's like everyone around you is valuing this. They don't know that this exists, right? And we experienced this, and then we try to articulate it, and it's just this never ending loop of pain. I mean, excruciating pain of not being able to speak what you know and what you feel and what is coming through love from this intelligence. And then you'll tune into a YouTube video where they're talking about, why can't the ETs just talk to us? You got to start opening your eyes and ears to other people who are bringing this through. And you're not hearing us. You keep going back to the bubble and expecting it to show up there, and it's not going to show up there. Only distorted viewpoints and fear-based viewpoints can show up in those layers of the spectrum, right?
Yeah. And people are asking the wrong questions. Like you said, when are they going to start talking to us? That's the wrong question.
Yeah.
Yes. How can I hear you?
Exactly. Beautiful point, Zuzanna. Even in some of these contact groups, that you're supposed to be support groups and all, I don't feel very welcome here,
Yeah.
or I'm not speaking the language.
It's got to be the celebrity names. They're the ones that are taken seriously, given the kudos. And then there's a bunch of crazy people, the other ones are just the crazy people.
Yeah, they call us the love and lighters, right? Is
yeah.
that, and when I first discovered that, I was like, what? Because we talk about love.
That's not intellectual.
No, because we actually feel love. And that's where the effing data is.
And see, that's another word that I went through this crisis about, a month or so ago.
Love, yes.
The word love. That's not the right word,
right.
Because that is so charged with so much stuff, sex and pain and, disappointment. And it means a billion things, but the kind of love we're talking about, right? Yeah, that narrow bandwidth, the kind of love we're talking about, that needs a new term. That needs new, like mind. It needs a bunch of different words to narrow in and hone in on what the fuck you're talking about. Because the word love doesn't say anything to me.
Oh, believe me, take me back to my music. When I would sing of love in my lyrics, well, what are you talking? What guy were you singing about?
Right.
I wasn't singing about a guy. I was singing about all of creation coming to me and infusing me with this love. Well, with presence, with energy. What word do I use? That's why language is so frustrating when you start to experience these other layers. They are not translatable to the mind that has no idea that it's trapped inside of a bubble.
Right.
How do you communicate with that? And so why are they trapped in a bubble? Because they are emotionally dumbed down. They are not actively engaging with their feminine nature and wisdom and power and all of that. This is the return of the divine feminine. People think some goddess is going to descend from the cloud or Jesus is going to descend from the clouds. It's going to arrive in your consciousness if you can humble yourself enough to say, I don't know anything. Please inform me. this power, this presence, this love, please inform me. Call it God, whatever it is in your world. I'm ready to know the truth. Well, when you're ready to know the truth, it's going to destroy everything that is not truth in your existing reality. Therefore, that's why people stay looping where they are, because they have this perfect little world all created.
Yep.
They don't want that destroyed, and they will defend it to the end.
We'll defend it, right.
Good
right.
luck with that. Good luck with that. And they'll talk about ascending and ascension at the same time.
Years ago, I did a bunch of research about the great year and the great ages and all that stuff. And I was doing outer research, but I was also getting a buttload that I didn't know at the time of inner research. And then when I finally realized it, it was like, oh God, yeah. And there's the information about in what people tend to call the golden age, and let's call it the age of truth. Let's just call it the age of truth, because I don't like any of those other terms, and they're just so confusing. And we're not that close to the age of truth right now. In the cycle of time, and as the cycle goes around through the cosmos and everything like that, in my calculation, it's about 8,000 years in our linear future. So anyway, at that time, when people were in the age of truth, communication was really different. And I know that this is what we are grappling with right now. What they have had down, or what they will have down, either side of where we are now in that big sphere, communication happened on a different nonverbal level.
Right.
And everybody and everything, including plants and animals, were there, because consciousness, when consciousness changes, it changes for everything, not just humanity. We're very, human-centered, and we kind of forget that it has to do with, your pets and our animals and the plants and everything like that. They are ascending as well. And so everything is wanting to communicate better, or more clearly, and having frustration in doing so. I see it in the animals that I take care of. I've seen it in the animals. And I know it in the plant world too, although I haven't seen it in the same. It's different. It's more of a feeling thing. Again, it's hard to describe, but we know this. We know how to do it. Everybody has access to it because we've been there before. We remember it. But we, like you say, bandwidth thing here, we stay right here and it's not accessible to us. We don't remember it in that bandwidth. We don't remember it. We don't have the possibility. What ascension is expanding that bandwidth. And when the bandwidth gets to, maximum capacity, that's when we will be able to do what we do now with more ease and no frustration, because everybody will be doing that. Does that make sense? I sound like I'm rambling right now, but
no, you sound like, the things that I've tried to articulate before, you just articulated it beautifully, in my opinion. It's yes. Yeah.
I've seen it. I've seen this, and I've experienced it on some level other than this. So I know it.
When we start to commune, this is what the non-human intelligence does. There is an intention with us over the course of our lives, or whatever amount of time in whatever each unique person's experience is in relation to this non-human intelligence. We are being given an opportunity to be shoved out of our complacency and our misunderstandings and our small world bandwidth thinking, by, the shove happens, and the shove can look like, I saw a UFO and I don't even know what, my mind doesn't know what to do with it, and everything, my family thinks I'm crazy and my wife wants a divorce, and whatever, the story ends up being. And then in a lot of cases, people just stay looping with that
Yeah.
level of
Yeah.
contact.
It's the story thing, it becomes a story, it becomes your history, and you are hanging on to that history, come hell or high water.
Well, and then going and wanting to meet other people like yourself that have had these kinds of experiences, and then instead of understanding the deeper purpose or meaning of it, there's a tendency to just keep reinforcing each other's stories, and then and then you find out you can make money by talking about these things and being, a platform speaker. Now, I am not saying that this doesn't have value. This has value. What I'm trying to emphasize through all of this work and reaching out to you and other experiencers is there's a reason why they come to us. And they come to us inside this limited spectrum where we have so much shadow material and misunderstandings and then filtering. And so then we project onto them and go, this is the meaning of this other intelligence. And then whole new bodies of data build up around that way of seeing it inside this small spectrum. What ET or non-human intelligence, or in all the modalities, I'm focusing on ET because that's yours and my experience primarily, is what, if we evolve with it and we learn to engage with them, which requires telling the truth. So we're getting back to, no, I can't do that because then it would destroy my existing world, right?
Yeah.
So we're always getting back to fear of expanding with this non-human intelligence, with the whole reason they are contacting us to begin with. And then we could go into, why do some people have really dark experiences? Well, I just sort of addressed that. It depends on where you're hanging out and how much shadow material you are carrying around in your own consciousness. You're going to project that shadow onto ET.
Yeah. Perception is reality.
Yeah. And you're also going to attract that into your life because you are resonating with shadow. So you're going to call shadow in, you're going to call the match for that in. But if you're willing to switch or alter your perception and say, okay, people that say they want to meet them in the skies, they want to have these experiences, you better be damn well sure that you're serious about this, because right, I mean, this is not like, oh, isn't this cool, we're talking to ETs.
Yeah.
No,
It's not
this
like
is
going to an entertainment park. It's not like going to Disneyland or anything like that.
no, it is transformational. So what you are inviting is transformation. And if you want transformation, then yes, initiate the dialogue, but be willing to go all the way with what they are here to do. They're in service right now to us. They're waking us up, and some of us way back many decades ago. And as I've said many times before, it is amazing that we're still alive. It is absolutely miraculous that we're still here and we're having this conversation.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, that's the one thing, me being here, it's the one thing that it's not the one thing, but if it were the only thing, it would make me believe in miracles.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I agree. So while I might sound like an angry woman, when I express my frustration, this is another thing that triggers people. If a woman embodies power and speaks it, and speaks with authority, it starts to trigger the, all the mother issues, all the mother shadow issues. Not just that, but other kinds of trauma as well. And also, once you, in shadow work, even underneath that is this ancient beginning of time wounding with the mother. We don't even get to that layer until we are willing to show up in this way and to speak our truth and to be truth in the world, thereby shattering the spell that we're under in this world. But then when we get to the mother level, that's when we can ignite and be reborn. And this is, I'm convinced this is what the return, what the second coming is, or the return of Christ, or, at least within the Christian framework, is once you free the mother to meet the Father, the heart of heaven and the heart of earth, you can ignite and be reborn again into your wholeness. This is what they're wanting to help us with, to be who we are. But we sound like the crazy ones, right? Because it's absolutely terrifying to people. They feel it. They won't be able to articulate it, but they'll feel it rumbling within, like, I can't engage with this. This will destroy everything. So I have to project onto this person and call her crazy, or I have to say she's one of those lunatic experiencers because I don't want to go to that level. Yeah. That's fine. Lots of love to you, and I wish you well. But I didn't go through this whole life, and I don't think you did either, Zuzanna, to just go, oh, well, I guess that's as far as we can go. No, I want to see how this began as a very small little girl. I want to see how this plays out. I want to listen and follow what this expansive, this invitation into, do you want to remember who you are? Yes, my answer is yes.
Yeah,
my answer is
yes
yes.
Too. And I've had a lot of backtracking and sidestepping and trying to be normal during it all.
Of course. It's been an extraordinary journey, and at the same time now I see that every moment like this where we can speak our truth, there's just infinite potential and possibilities that can emerge from it. If we're willing to keep showing up in this way. And,
well, when we talk like this, the consciousness changes. I mean, I can feel it in me since we've been talking.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, because
and whenever we talk, whenever we do these dialogues, or whenever we even talk like on the telephone or anything like that, I feel it. It changes. And as one becomes more accustomed to that, then you kind of hang out there just by default, for lack of a better term, anyway, and you start off from that, and then you can expand, change the consciousness again exponentially, and then it happens, I mean, we've had these things happen in our lives where you have an experience and consciousness has shifted, and then you have to acclimate to it little by little, and it just sort of happens. It's sort of like, you might call it grace or something like that, and I had always wondered when I was younger and I would have these things happen, and I recognized that something was really different, and I wondered if I could always hang out in that place. And I did a lot of research in myself and like through literature to see, could I affect that? And at first my conclusions were no, it has to just happen. But what I've added to that through continued research and just kind of like showing up is that you must remain in a state of a receptive state, I think that's the story, the biblical story of the bridegroom or something like that, you know, where the women with the lamps or something like that, they have to be ready for the bridegroom to come. They don't know when he's going to come, but everything has to be
Right.
ready. I think that that's what that means, that we
Yeah.
have to be in a completely receptive state as much during the day and night as possible.
Mm-hmm.
Because then when it's ready for the grace to come, you know, one of these experiences to come, you recognize it and you can get the most bang for your buck, you know.
Yep.
uh,
Yep.
and it's kind of like it's like both, and you know, you can um, keep yourself in a certain level of preparedness, and then it does descend upon you in some way at some point for who knows what reason. You know, so it's
Yes.
kind of both of those things.
Yes. Yes. I just, as you were talking about the bridegroom, the bride, I have lyrics that came from the music from that time I was just referring to about that. And I didn't understand
Right.
fully. You know, people ask me what, you know, you talk about the divine feminine. Well, what is the divine masculine? And as you were talking, I was just feeling a representative, someone who could represent the divine masculine is someone who could, for instance, join us in a conversation like this and encourage and lift up the divine feminine and not be triggered by it.
Right.
So
Not.
healed and integrated themselves that they can step in at this timing especially and lift up this wisdom that is pouring through some of us, whether we're women or men. But uh, mostly in this spectrum, um, the only visible thing is the male perspective, or, you know, they call it the
Right.
patriarchy. Um,
Well, they're always the experts, you know, they're always the ones that anybody looks to. It's,
right.
it's
And
the
so,
yardstick in which we measure everything.
yeah,
In
but then people
uh,
would hear you say that right now and say, oh, she's just an angry, you know,
feminine.
feminist, right? I don't even know what feminist means.
I know, right?
Um,
It's another word. It
yeah,
doesn't mean anything really.
no. But so uh, the divine masculine is that which is visible in these lower matrix, in the lower spectrum, can be visible there and can have a voice and can have influence, right? And
Yeah.
is awake and together and integrated enough and not threatened, not threatened by the feminine or wounded by the feminine and acting out of that wounding, but is healed and can then go, I see what that person is saying. I feel it. I want to help it be visible in the world, even though the world will probably attack me for it, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's, to
Mm-hmm.
me, that would be the best representation of the divine masculine in the lower spectrum layers, a bandwidth of consciousness. That's what is needed right now. And so if those people exist, you know, and you watch this video, respond, please,
Yes.
because
Touch.
if we could get this conversation, this dialogue going in a horizontal way, not just a vertical way, but horizontally in the lower vibrational matrix, this can really break it wide open so that more people could go, oh, you know, because it's visible now with the divine
Right.
masculine lifting it up,
Visual.
and
Right.
then they can be made aware of, wait, what's he talking about? Because they can't hear us. We're just these blank faces with ba 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 in this spectrum. And it's almost like how people describe ETs as well, right? They're
Well,
just
yeah, that's the thing.
wispy forms that don't have faces, and they don't talk. You know, it's
And they're scary.
and
And
they're
they're
scary.
scary. That's great, Eileen. That's brilliant.
And they're scary.
There we go. We've got our definition of feminist now. It's the ETs.
Oh, that's great. I love it.
Perfect.
I love it. Well, we should probably end on that note. I don't want to make this too long, but
Always end with a laugh. That's what they say.
yes, exactly. I love our conversations, Zuzanna. It always takes me to a new place of understanding and insight and direction. You know, it's like through the dialogue we can discover more and integrate more and
Yeah,
apply more. Right?
absolutely.
Yeah.
It's so necessary. It's those spiritual vitamins, that I always say, it's
Yeah,
what it is.
for sure.
Great.
Okay. Well, thanks for just making yourself available at such short notice. It's like, oh my God, I have to record a video. And as I've shared with you and a few other people, I've tried a half dozen times. I haven't made a video in so long. I've tried a half dozen times, and I am so I'm it's hard to bring it into a focus when there's no question for me. I can't, it's like I can't function without the dialogue now. Because I could go in a gazillion different directions unless I have a question, which I want to put it out there now before we close. I'm going to really look into how to create these events and on what platform, so that we can have these conversations and people can ask questions. And then
Cool.
I will, do it like little mini sessions, like tune into them and listen to their voice and help them to at least move or have some movement from the space that they're in. Obviously couldn't be a full-on session, but I'd be willing to show up in that way. And then, whatever other kinds of questions people might have about how to actually do this, not in theory or in pretend in story land, but actually how this works in our physical bodies,
Right.
how embodiment works. So I'm actually very excited about that, and I hope people are interested in going in that direction. If we can make this video visible with all the algorithms and the yeah.
See.
Okay. Thanks again, Zuzanna. See
You're
ya.
welcome. You're welcome.
Next time. Bye.
And no longer can I play the game. I've used up all my energy. Exhausted, I surrender to grace eternally. And all of creation is longing for you. And all of creation is forcing the truth. And all of creation will not be ignored. No whispers anymore. The tables are turned. There's a knock. I can hear them in their celebration, say